think the SEALs appealed to him. I will tell you that when he was going through the SEALs, I had said to him, I said, you know, Michael, this is really tough. You know, it has like an 80% dropout rate. Michael's SEAL class started with 196. It ended up with 18. It's an extremely rigorous program. He was injured during training. They lost that commanding officer who drowned. He threw a pulmonary embolism during the drown-proof exercises. So it's a regimen that very few get through. When I told him, I said, look, you know, if you don't make it, please feel, you know, don't be embarrassed. It's so, and he said, Dad, there's no way I'm not going to get through SEAL training. He said, I don't want to be a morale officer on a surface ship. I think he kind of likened it to going to jail. So we kind of knew he was going to go through. This tour in Afghanistan was his fourth. He had done 2 to Iraq, 1 to Africa that he never spoke about. We think he was either in Somalia or Sudan. The SEALs have a very interesting the way they operate. You wind up going to like a country and then you never hear, you know, then you don't hear from after that. They're in Qatar. Oh, okay, well, Qatar, that's terrific. But then from Qatar they deploy out to either Iraq, Afghanistan. I thought Michael was in Iraq. I had assumed he was just going back there. What had happened that we know is that when they got to Qatar, they split the team. They wanted half of Michael's team to come and join SEAL Team 10 in Afghanistan for this special operation involving Ahmad Shah, but I think it had more to do with Mullah Omar than Ahmad Shah. That's the backstory. Ahmad Shah was like Mullah Omar's top lieutenant. The battle basically lays it out. Michael, and for those of you who read Lone Survivor, you'll know that Michael, Marcus describes Michael as stepping out into a clearing into what Marcus described as an avalanche of bullets, knowing that he was going to be shot and possibly killed. Believe me, I've been in combat. I couldn't do it. Okay, so that's why I said where he came from, where that courage came from. Michael, in the teams, for those of you who may be familiar with the Navy SEALs, I mean, it's all about team. We laid the keel of a ship last week, and just to give you an indication, the Navy was kind enough. It was important to us, as far as Michael's legacy, to not have, even though it carries Michael's name, the USS Michael Murphy, has the keel plate that's being laid in the keel has all 19 special operators, the 11 SEALs and the 8 Nighthawks who came to Michael's rescue. As an aside, before I'll tell you, end on a more cheerful note, that Gary, during his research, learned things that we didn't even know. 4 of the men who responded to Michael's distress call for needing help and ran to the helicopters, either the helicopter crewmen or the SEALs, 4 of them were 24 hours from deploying in a country. There's a kind of a SEAL saying that says all in all the time, and that's basically you're on and you respond. We had received word after from Admiral McGuire, who's head of the Navy SEALs, that every Navy SEAL, when Michael went missing, because he was missing for a week, and they knew that 1 or more of them were alive because their emergency beacons were going, that every SEAL on both coasts, east and west, wanted to go over to Afghanistan. Of course, they couldn't accommodate all of them, but that's the community. There's only 2,000 of them, for those of you who may not be aware. 2,000 SEALs out of a Navy force of 330,000, I believe, and a 1.4 million person service. So it is an extremely elite group and very tight-knit. A lot of people ask with regard to, I'll end before I introduce Gary with the White House, because a lot of people want to know more about President Bush, especially the private meeting. We had the opportunity to, just before the ceremony, to meet President Bush in the Oval Office in a private meeting, just Maureen and I. We walk into the Oval Office. I have to tell you that I walked into the Oval Office and I wasn't like that impressed. I looked and said, I've been here before, because you see it on TV. I will tell you, if you get the opportunity to go to the White House on either the tour, go to the Roosevelt room. It's the blue and gold room. It is literally, I think, the nicest room in that building, because it's all dark blue, royal blue draperies with gold fillet. There's a big picture of Jackie Onassis. I will tell you that the whole family had pictures taken. The ceremony was in October. At Christmas time, we must have got at least 18 or 20 Christmas cards from our friends that all taken either under Jackie Onassis's photograph or by the draperies with the gold fillet, because it was like, oh, you know, Merry Christmas from the White House. It was like one of those things, so it was rather impressive. But anyway, so we walk into the Oval Office, and the president, extremely charming and charismatic man, regardless of your politics, he is extremely charming. It was a rather sorrowful and tearful event. He had to go into his desk and pull out tissues, but his first response as Maureen and I walked in is he welcomed us and then said, and I won't forget this as a combat veteran, he had said to us, I want you to understand no matter how the press plays this, the loss of each and every one of my men affects me deeply. And it was the personal way in which he said his men. You know, he didn't discuss it as our servicemen. It was personal to him. And then you find out things that you don't normally hear, which is that he made it a point to get a bio of every, and of course some days were worse than others, a bio of every soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guard who were killed during the War on Terror, because he wanted to read about them. And he steeled himself at his desk to read about each one of them. He told us because it was important to him to understand that the decisions that he was making in that office, how it was affecting what was going on out there with the people who were having to do the work. So it was important to him to read that and familiarize himself with what the costs were of the decisions. Then of course, the public ceremony. Then before the public ceremony, we had a gift for him, which was a gold dog tag that had on the front of it Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy, U.S. Navy SEAL, June 28, 2005, Afghanistan. And on the back, you saw that picture of Michael with his team, with actually his graduation in his whites. The only time we ever saw Michael in his whites. We had that picture taken, and it was put on the reverse side of the dog tag in a holographic image, so that it was like one of those that, you know, kind of stands out. We presented that to the president, and the next thing we know, the president takes his jacket off, and then he's taking his tie off, and then he starts unbuttoning his shirt. And you know how when you're with your partner for a really long time, Maureen and I like look at each other going, why is the president getting undressed in the Oval Office? Because we didn't understand. And what happened was, so he unbuttons his shirt. He wears a t-shirt, by the way. He does wear an undershirt. He took the medal, put it on, put it under his t-shirt, and then rebuttoned his shirt, put his tie on, put his jacket on, says, okay, I'm ready to go. And then, of course, they had the ceremony. And if you ever get the opportunity to see the video feed of the Medal of Honor ceremonies, as he's talking, you'll see him touching his chest, which is where he had the medal. There's a photo in the album. We brought the album that the White House gave us of the photos of the ceremonies done in Washington. You're free to look at them. They're not just turn the pages and don't worry about it. If the pictures come loose, they come loose. But you should look. There's one photo. Normally what happens, the president always comes in last into the East Room, and of course he leaves first. On this particular occasion, he broke protocol. When he left, he grabbed Maureen and I and walked us out of the room. And just outside the room, he grabs both of us around, basically kind of like a bear hug, but like me on one side, Maureen on the other. And he goes, Murph, you did good. He said, but you know what? He said, I got to tell you, I think I did better. He said, because I had Michael right next to my heart. Of course, that's